I feel like this is like, because I know like when you had Ethan on, you guys talked a little bit about like, like what it's like to interact with Thai people. One of the things with like Chinese culture is like, you have to like, if someone offers you food, but you're no longer like hungry, you have to wait until they ask you the third time to then reject it. So you say like, after the third time they ask you, you're then allowed to reject eating more food. But if you do it the second or the first time, it's considered disrespectful.
I love that rule.
Okay.
That's a great rule.
It's a whole thing. So you have to wait until they ask you 3 times to do it. The parent will go to the school saying that school's too easy and you're not challenging my kid enough.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Again, my parents never did that. My parents are not, they don't fall under that stereotype, thankfully.
Yeah.
But like with traditional Chinese parents, they would say like an A is an average, or they say school is too easy. If you get a B, it means you're doing a bad job and you might get a spanking. If you get a C, you can't have dinner. If you get a D, don't even bother coming home.
I would not.
And then if you get an F, find a new family. Get out of my house.
Hello and welcome back to another 0.5 episode of the Campfire Council podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. With us on the council, we have James, Milo, Noah, Joey's, and with us again, Sam. Welcome back to the podcast again, Sam.
Glad to be back.
Yeah, buddy, you made it for a 0.5.
Yeah.
So we know that you are just like us with nerdy stuff. So
we're all nerds here. Let's just
all
get it
nerds
out there.
here.
We're all nerds.
Let's get into it. So I know we talked about some of it on the main episode or the previous episode, but do you have like a favorite video game, or do you have currently? Let's get into that. What's your favorite like video game, if you game at all?
Yeah, more than happy to. I play a lot of story campaign games, and so I have a PS5. So a lot of what I love to play is I've played Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, along with the sequel, Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Such a good game.
I've played on the PS4 the Uncharted video games, if anyone's played those. The Spider-Man, the Insomniac Spider-Man games. And then what I've really been enjoying lately has been the Last of Us games, which, by the way, season 2 coming out on HBO April 13th. Can't wait for that.
Hey-o.
But my favorite thing to do is I have the remake of The Last of Us Part 1 and then also Part 2. They have a feature called permadeath mode where you have one life essentially to get through the entire campaign. And if you die anywhere during your permadeath run, you have to start the game all the way back from the beginning. And The Last of Us games, they're long.
It's cruel.
And and I actually play with Ben Cartland, who is on the Respawn group. And there have been many times where I'd have like really bogus deaths. Like I'll like fall off, I'll like glitch out of the map and I'll die, or the game will crash on me and then it'll penalize me and saying like, you weren't in a safe zone when you died, so you have to start the game all over again. And only recently, they also have a feature called permadeath, but you can do permadeath per chapter, where if you just die during a chapter, you just have to repeat the chapter. Yeah. So I would do grounded mode on the hardest difficulty on permadeath mode. And to say that if take your pick on how many times I've raged during a single playthrough, though. And then I'd laugh at myself afterwards because of how funny the death was. So I really enjoy doing those. And only recently did I actually complete permadeath, a grounded mode permadeath per chapter on the 2 Last of Us games. So I'm working on whole game currently.
You must have to play it at like such a slow pace to like just be so careful that you don't die. I mean, so you did the second game as well on the...
Yeah, and the second game, the campaign can take up to like 23 hours.
Yeah, what did you do when you got to like the scene where you have to like face like the Rat King or whatever he is?
Hey, no spoilers.
Well,
keep
people
going.
might not even know what the Rat King is, though. So
yeah,
but
fair. All right,
well, let's just say I would scream, "Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh crap!" like over and over again. Like that's essentially what it would look like.
Did you get through it like on the first try, or
there's actually like a secret formula to actually go about that? It's actually when you fight the Rat Prince afterwards, like that. That's the hard part because when you fight the Rat King, you just have to use like the flamethrower to weaken it, and then you could like throw pipe bombs at it, and it eventually it'll die. But the first time I played it, oh my gosh, was I like I can't wait to see how they adapt it into the show. That thing is going to be absolutely grotesque.
Yeah.
And it's like if you thought like if you think Walking Dead is bad, it's like Last of Us.
What
is
was
just,
that? So like I'm thinking about season 1 of Last of Us where they were leaving the city with that guy and his little brother. What was that
bloater.
creature? What was
The
it?
bloater.
The
bloater.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
comes out of the
Yeah,
ground.
That came
that
out of the
was
ground.
such
Dude,
a
that
cool
scene is crazy because
Yeah.
it's like we knew what was happening and they had no idea what was happening.
The guy with the long hair that shoots at him.
Yeah,
and
he wasn't
it just-
moving.
Well, he wasn't moving, but
Oh my
he was
gosh.
actually one of the voice actors.
he was the original voice actor for Tommy in
Yes.
the video game.
Yeah.
Joel's
Oh,
brother.
so he
Yeah.
was. Okay.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool how they integrated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that same guy who was shooting that bloater, he was just shooting it
Yeah.
and he was accepting his death.
Yeah, I did.
Dude, run.
Yeah.
Just run away. You can live to fight another day.
There's no way you're
Oh.
running away from that.
You know what I found really funny though? I couldn't help but laugh, but like that really tiny child clicker
Yeah.
that like jumps on the
Oh,
lady
yeah, in
after.
the van.
I couldn't help but laugh really hard. At that was so freaking funny. Like I know it was all serious and stuff, but like
Right.
that
No,
was
that
just
was a good scene.
that was too funny.
The fear of that, like being in the car with that thing. Oh
Yeah,
my
that was stressful.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that was terrifying. Ooh, what
Oh,
a
yeah.
great
Yeah,
show.
that was a really good show though. I
Mm-hmm.
do wish I could play the games. Like I said before, I don't have PlayStation, just Xbox.
Do
so-
they? I know, big Power Rangers guy here. Do they
Yeah.
have any Power Rangers games? Like
They
video
do
games?
actually. Oh
Like
my gosh, I
PS2
can't remember.
games. I feel like.
They have some. They had like video games like dedicated to specific Power Rangers seasons, but they have a new one out for the PS4. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's like Power Rangers Battle for the Grid or something like that. It's basically like those old fashioned RPG games. There's no story mode campaign to it. I played it a couple times. I enjoy it, but there's no story to it, which I find a little. Well, there is a story, but it's very like a thin layered story, which.
Okay.
I'm really like not that invested in it. I'd much rather watch the show than like play the games at all though, which
Fair.
is kind of my thing with it. But like they have like old like Game Boy Color games that I really
so
enjoy,
Game
but
Boy Color, let's go.
I don't think I have those anymore. I'd have to ask my brother. Maybe he still has like one of the old cartridges or something, but I can't remember. We don't like play like our Game Boys anymore though, and
I still have a Game Boy Advanced up in my
Really?
room, a purple one.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Game Boy Advance or a Game Boy Advance SP.
just Advanced.
Yeah.
Oh man.
The purple one.
What's the SP?
It just means that like when there's like a button at the top that like your screen can illuminate brightly, so like you can play the Game Boy Advance SP during nighttime with the lights off.
No, I didn't have
But
that
like if you
luxury.
just have a Game Boy
It's
Advance,
the normal screen.
yeah, it's like a normal screen. But like say if you're like playing in a really sunny, like in a sunny location, or if you're playing in the middle of the night, you can't see the screen.
Yeah.
Then there's the folding one too, the folding Game Boy Advance.
Well, that is the Game Boy
Yeah,
Advance SP.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Oh yeah, dude, that Game Boy was a lifesaver for road trips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before like cell phones or like
Yeah.
iPhones,
Yes.
smartphones, you would just be in the back car, just clicking away in that thing. I remember I'd play the Yoshi game or like the Mario game and
Yeah.
I don't know, a couple other games, but those are lifesavers.
I play Pokemon Emerald
Yes.
on that like religiously.
Nice.
And what's really annoying is that like I'd bring my Game Boy Advance SP onto like flights because when you fly back to China, it's like a 16-hour flight.
Oof, yeah.
But back then, like now when you go on a flight, they have like power outlets in between your seats. Back then they didn't. And my Game Boy Advance SP only had like 3 hours of battery life.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it would die in the middle of the flight. And I wanted to like continue like my Pokemon Emerald run and I can't do anything about it. And I remember being like,
Dang.
can I just like sneak into first class and like use the power outlets? And they were like, no. And I was like, okay, well, I guess.
Did
I
it
just have
not
to
have
wait.
interchangeable batteries for that?
No, you're thinking the Game Boy Advance has that, but the SP, the folding ones,
So plug
you'd
it in.
actually have to plug it in
Oh,
though.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
and then we'd get to the airport in Beijing, and then I would plug it into the wall, and I'd say to my parents, like, go get your go. Let's go to baggage claim, get our bags. I'll wait here, let it charge for a bit before we can leave the airport because I want to make sure that it's like
Yeah.
charged a decent amount that I could play for like 45 minutes or something. It was,
How many times have you been to China?
I think like every summer up until like I started like my freshman year of high school.
That's
Whoa.
kind of like how
Wow.
it was for my dad because he would go to France because he
Mhm.
was born there and he would the same thing every summer he would go back. So I
Yeah.
never really got to like hang out with his friends here.
hmm
Oh, which is crazy.
I know.
That's so funny.
You just said every summer from Bobby Lee. Sorry, that just made me little side silly note there.
Yeah.
I thought I messed up on what I was saying.
Yeah,
was like, oh, no.
that's sweet though. You got to visit, China a bunch of times.
Well, yeah, we're in China.
It's in like the northern part of China, like the Beijing area. So,
I'm gonna pull up
but
the map.
also, yeah, I couldn't remember like, I mean, I could tell you the city names. I just couldn't tell you like where, like in China they're located, because like I said, I can't like do geographics. Yeah, like if you go to like, okay, yeah. So if you have like Beijing up there, yeah, like a little like southern south of Beijing a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the food over there?
The Yellow Sea.
It is. So like I said, I'm really picky with foreign food. So
Okay.
I'm a simple guy. Give me like a cheeseburger and fries, I'm good. But there are some like I'm really into like Chinese snacks. Like snacks, I'm
okay.
really into.
Give us like a top 3 Chinese snacks.
I'll tell you this though. It's like Chinese ramen
Okay.
to die for.
Ooh,
I am
that
like
sounds good.
obsessed with that. They also have like Chinese like sweetened iced tea, which is like, and like I said, if my family is watching this, it's like, I know you guys bought like literally like my brother and my sister-in-law bought me like a caseload of it. And I think I downed that thing in like a few days. Like normally you buy, yeah, like imagine like buying like the big big like sets of water from like Costco, and imagine finishing that in like 3 days. That's how quickly I finished like the iced tea. And like like if my family's watching this, I know I finished it. I know it's not good for my health, and I'm sorry, but
Get 'em
like,
more.
it's
good.
really
Get 'em
really
more.
good. If you guys are ever like in like downtown Chinatown in like in Chicago or something like that. I'll have you all try it. It's like to die for. It's if I had a final drink, that's what I would drink. Cause
That would be a
it's
cool
so
trip.
good. Yeah.
Go to Chinatown.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
go with you next time. I
Let's
went
go
to
Chinatown.
Yeah, I'd like
Chinatown
To do
when I was in Thailand. I know it's one of the bigger, one of the biggest Chinatowns in at least that I was told. But that was the food that they had too. Though was really good.
Yeah.
I
Was
really
that-
enjoyed that.
Was that when you were in Bangkok?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So because I was over actually with Ethan
Yeah.
for the missions trip several years ago,
out.
but I would love to travel to China. I've always wanted to see the Great Wall. I have a friend that went there, and she took a bunch of pictures, and it just looks incredible.
Oh yeah, it's amazing there.
You got to see it.
I did get to see it. Yeah, this was like years ago, and the only thing I remember from that trip is I was a little kid, so like I was really lazy, so I was complaining the whole way through, so I couldn't appreciate it.
Every kid
And then
ever.
my brother, he has a terrible fear of heights, so
Oh,
he
jeez.
was also
A
complaining.
bad combo.
So it was just, it was more of like the trip was just like 90% complaining and like 10% actually appreciating the Great Wall. So I feel like I would like to go again so I could actually appreciate the scenery there. But
I don't know why our parents ever took us anywhere like when we were younger than like 10.
Yeah.
Like what?
Traveling with little
we
ones.
never really, unless it was just rides or something, we never really got to
mhm.
fully enjoy the trip and make their life miserable for the most part.
What are some observations that you've made between the difference between like American culture and Chinese culture?
Ooh,
Hot
There's a-
takes only.
yeah.
Hot takes only.
there's a lot. I'm trying to think of like some good ones though. This is like because I know like when you had Ethan on, you guys talked a little bit about like like what it's like to interact with Thai people. One of the things with like Chinese culture is like you have to like if someone offers you food but you're no longer like hungry, you have to wait until they ask you the third time to then reject it. So you say like after the third time they ask you, you're then allowed to reject eating more food. But if you
Okay.
do it the second or the first time, it's considered disrespectful.
I love that rule.
Okay.
That's a
Yeah.
great rule.
It's a whole thing. So you have to wait until they ask you 3 times to do it though. I don't know if that's something that my family or my extended family enforces or not. But it's a thing that happens. Something else though, it's the one thing I think is quite humorous is the way that like Chinese parents like discipline their kids when they don't do well at school. So like, like here in the States though, like if you get like a B plus on an exam, it's like, oh yeah, like it's not an A, but good effort. But
Yeah.
like,
And then you get a spanking.
yeah, you get a spanking. Well, no, you get a spanking if you, see, my parents didn't do this with me. I don't know if they did it with my brother or not. I don't think so. But like, if like the stereotype of like a Chinese family would be like, if you get an A, It's an average. It's like, all right, you got an A. It's what you're supposed to get. But also sometimes what can happen is like if you get straight A's on your report card, the parent will go to the school saying that school's too easy and you're not challenging my kid enough.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Again, my parents never did that. My parents are not, they don't fall under that stereotype, thankfully.
Yeah.
But like with traditional Chinese parents, they would say like an A is an average, or they say school is too easy. If you get a B, it means you're doing a bad job and you might get a spanking. If you get a C, you can't have dinner. If you get a D, don't even bother coming home.
I would not. Make
And then
it
if you get an
China.
F, find a new family. Get out of my house. Get out of my house.
F is for find a new family.
Exactly.
Little SpongeBob reference.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how long I'd make it in China over there.
Yeah, I would last a day.
Yeah.
So one other thing too that I was thinking of is like you mentioned food is a big thing in like Chinese culture, and is it wrong for me to think like in this way? Like I feel like in Chinese culture, like portion sizes are huge. Like in terms of
you're so spot on with
okay,
that though.
because I went to San Francisco with my family, and we went to Chinatown in San Francisco, and we go to this like we didn't know that this was a restaurant. We were like looking around. We were like, "Where's the best like Chinese restaurant? We want to get some really good food." And we go down into this like almost like garage alley way. We go into this basement, and we sit down, we're ordering, like the place is packed, and we're ordering, and we're like, yeah, we'll get one of these. And the guy goes, oh, so you guys are like really hungry? And we're like, yeah, we're hungry. Like, I don't know what you mean by we're really hungry. And he goes, oh, so no, you're really, really hungry. I'm like,
I like the sound of
sure,
this
I
place.
guess. We had 2 tables worth of food.
Yes, no, keep
2
going.
tables. Like we had leftovers probably
Why'd you
for the
guys invite
next
Luke?
2 weeks.
We
It
gotta
was
get food after this,
insane.
man.
Like
Yes.
it was so crazy the amount of food that we got. Like every single dish that we ordered, like it didn't say it on the menu, but it could have fed like at least 12 people. Every single dish that we ordered.
That sounds
and it was
wonderful.
insane.
Try going down. If that's how it is in like Chinatown in San Francisco, try actually going to mainland China, because we'll be like sitting like at like literally like, and I'm not exaggerating this. If you go to like a sit down restaurant in China, they'll have like the big round tables where you have to like spin across to like get your food. And I swear it's literally like, it's like the Titanic, where it's like, you're like there and you're pretty much like living at that table for like a good like 4 hours.
Fine with me.
because you're just given food, like, and even like your side dishes are like massive. You'll get like a side of rice and it's like massive. And yeah, we take home like many leftovers. In fact, when I was in China, the last time I was in China, and we have like big family dinners, it was more convenient because there were so many of us. So like, all right, you and your aunts and uncles will take this home. We'll take this home. Your cousins will take this home. Your grandparents will take this home. So it works out.
Yeah.
But like, if you like go order like a Chinese restaurant, there's only 4 of you. Yeah, good luck, because it's
You just have,
it's
like,
chaotic. It's chaotic.
That's crazy.
your suitcase just like full of food on their flight
Yeah,
back
right?
home, just like
It's funny you mentioned that, because the last time my mom came back, like, from China, my aunts and uncles were saying like, Sam, do you want anything back from China? And even if I said no, my mom would have one full suitcase that's just dedicated to like snacks and whatnot. And you could fit, and that's enough snacks for like a whole month. I think only like recently I finished one of them. My mom was like, don't like, and mom, if you're watching this, like, I'm so sorry. Like, my mom's been saying like, savor these snacks. Don't like eat them all in one go.
he didn't.
And I would,
Yeah.
yeah.
He didn't.
Don't.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't.
We've
Mom,
all been there.
I didn't eat all those snacks, but like I would down them, and I would like beg, like just don't get like, because they're so good though. They have like these like crunchy rolls that are almost like chocolate flavored like crunchy like rolls that are like rolled up in like straws. And you'd have enough for like maybe like 3 weeks, and I downed them in like 4 days.
There you go. There you go.
Is it overwhelming to be in Chinese cities like with so many people?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know how like here, like if you just step outside, like
Joey's
quiet-
never going.
if you just step outside, it's like quiet.
Yeah.
If you go to like where my aunt lives, they live on the 6th floor of like their apartment. You get a really nice view out to like the city landscape, but like every now and then you hear like drills, like people like doing construction work. You'll see like horns blowing in the background. It's like, it's a whole thing. And I'm just like, I cannot like
City life.
go to sleep at all during the evenings or anything like that. It's so loud. And also where my aunt currently lives, there's no elevator, so you always have to walk like 6 flight of stairs, and she'd order like, I don't know, like a caseload of water, and like me or my cousin, we have to go down and get it, and it'd be like 98 outside, and this whole thing. Which, by the way, the AC, I could not, like, I don't know if you guys have this problem or not, but like my mom and I, we constantly fight about how hot or cold it needs to be in the house. It could be like 100 outside, and my mom's like, no, just open a window, you're good. and I'm just like, no, turn the AC on, and not only have it on, but put it at like 69. And my whole thing is like, listen, if you're too hot, if you're too cold, just throw on more layers.
Yep.
But it's not like if it's too hot, you can
Right.
Well, you can do that. It just wouldn't be socially acceptable.
Right.
You can run outside naked, but I'd rather
option.
avoid the cops than have to deal with that nonsense.
It sounds like my sister. My
sister?
younger sister,
Oh,
like
my
we'll drive. We'll be driving together, and it'll be like 90 degrees outside, and I'll turn on the AC a little bit, and she'll like complain because she gets cold. Sarah, you get cold, and I'm just like,
Sarah.
throw on, like, just deal with it. It's the middle of summer. It's like 90 degrees. I had the AC on for a little bit. It's not that bad.
Thank you.
I do love, though. I wish American culture was more like the Asian culture, at least from my experience, and what like you're saying is just like more based around like family and friends getting together and like eating food. I feel like it's a lot more individual. Like a lot of times it's like people eat by themselves more. Like I miss having like the family meals, but I just remember going and getting food with a lot of like a big group of us, like our mission team that we had, and then like a lot of the local ties, like their friends. And we'd spend like 3, sometimes 4 hours at a restaurant just eating food, hanging out, and they'd be like, so we're going for dessert. Or like where are we going for dinner? And it'd be like you go from one restaurant, you hang out for hours, you go to the next restaurant, and then you go dessert. And it's just like food is just coming at you. It's crazy. It was great.
Yeah.
That's so interesting to see that dynamic in other cultures, and then you come to America and you're eating at a restaurant, and it's like, dude, if you're not out within an hour, like you're getting like shooed out the door.
They gotta make those tips. Food is so much more of an experience in other cultures, like in Mexico or in Asia. It's like you go to a restaurant and you sit there and you eat for a long time. And also food is not individual there, where like here you order a burger, you eat your burger. Whereas there you order a dish, and like people are like, when you with the rotating
Table.
the rotating table, it's like you eat. Just because you're ordering something, that doesn't mean that you're the only one eating it. And I like that so much more, because food it's meant to be shared, and like it brings people together. But I feel like in America we really have pulled away from that in the way that we eat and like the food that we're serving, you know?
Like when you went to the Chinese restaurant, every one of those orders is for multiple people.
Right.
It's not,
we didn't know that. like, dude, our fridge in our hotel room was almost overflowing with boxes of food.
How many people did you have?
It was me, my brother, my mom, and my dad.
You should have
It
like
was four
four
of
times
us.
the amount of people that you did.
I know.
For the amount of food that you
Just
ordered.
It was
four
so
Lukes is all you
crazy.
need. You're good. Just 4 meals in your
And from what I
Nice.
remember, I don't know, Mom, Dad, you can correct me when I get home. But it wasn't that expensive. Like, it was like max. We got like 5 or 6 separate dishes that could feed, 20, 25 people. We maybe paid $100.
yeah.
Well,
Like,
sounds great.
why can't we get that here? Why can't we get that in
Capitalism.
I mean, it was San Francisco, but still, either way, like it's still, I don't know, like it's just not regular here.
One thing,
the States.
like in my family, I don't know if this is 100% true, but this is kind of how I interpret it. But
No,
it's
it
like
is.
a little bit of a flex if you can order a lot of food. So like when we go, we like this was like last year or a couple of years ago, we went to a Filipino restaurant with all of our family, and like the older relatives, obviously they've made it, they're wealthy, and they just ordered a ton of food. they were bringing out so much food that one of my one of the younger cousins, like in his 30s, he told like the waiter, "You can stop bringing food out now." It's like embarrassing.
Really?
Yeah, it was like
Wow.
an embarrassing amount of food.
Dude, just
But-
call Luke when you guys do that.
Yeah, right.
He'll take
So hang
care
on
of
to
it.
your
He's a
family.
human.
Yeah, we'll have to
Human
go.
garbage
Me and
disposal.
Luke, and we'll take care of it.
One thing I liked too when I was over in Thailand is not just the hanging out, but it was a common thing. So if we all ordered food together, it'd be like one of us would pour everyone's water for each other, and you would like serve each other. So
Oh, that's
it's
cool.
not just
Yeah.
like I ordered this, and you just start eating. It's like, oh hey James, like would you like some water? And I would pour it for you. Or Noah, would you like some of my dish here? And I would serve
Absolutely
you.
not.
Well, you're gonna get it.
Okay.
There's no no's there, so it's just
Oh,
something that was
no
just like a little small selfless act, but it more interactive and more like, hey, let me serve you. Would you like some of this? Are you thirsty? Can I get you some more water? That's what I thought was really cool. So I expect all of you to pour my water from now on. So
There you go.
I will not be doing that.
But yeah, I think that's one of the huge differences between our culture and a lot of Asian cultures is just American culture is super individualistic, whereas Asian cultures are more about the community. That's one thing I kind of interpreted your Mulan video as, like at the end, I was kind of interpreting that as like Mulan gets like her value or her reconciliation from the community versus like in the cartoon version, I interpreted that as more of an American take on the story where she like her value doesn't come from what others think of her. But I don't know, maybe I was off base with that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you point that out though. I think I think it's just different the way I because like here's the other thing that I didn't mention in the main episode is that like there weren't a lot of Chinese people that were touching the script very much. So it really seemed like even then the Mulan remake was trying to like tell the story based off of their limited knowledge of how Chinese culture
that's not good.
works, and it's a whole thing though. Like I couldn't like honestly I could write a whole book on everything that's wrong with that remake. The irony is that like I actually tried rewatching the Mulan remake again on Disney Plus with the Mandarin dub. Surprisingly, it makes it like 30% better.
Really? Okay.
Ironically, the story still is absolute crap, but ironically, it's actually
That's good.
somewhat better in that regard.
Okay.
And I think that's what I'm thinking to myself. If all of the live action remakes spoke in the native language that like the source material derived from, I think that would be a lot more
makes sense.
a lot more like easier to like contend with. So like if you watch like the Aladdin live action remake and it was in Arabic instead of like English, I feel like, and like sing the songs in Arabic too, I think like that would make it a lot more tolerable.
Yeah.
I
No,
think
I
it's just
agree.
the irony
Yeah.
with that, but it's a whole thing.
Yeah, whenever it's some sort of historical movie in another culture, I always want it to be in the other language. Like one of the examples is Shogun. I didn't complete the
dude,
show, but
was
I
so
liked that
good.
they were actually like speaking Japanese.
And it sounds cool.
Yeah.
It sounds more.
You gotta finish Shogun. It's so
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's so good.
Is there? I mean, have you been anywhere else in Asia, or do you just go to China when you?
It's mostly just China though, because I would spend like 3 months just in China, and I'd spend like 3 months enrolled in like Chinese school there to like learn more of the language, as if I wasn't already getting enough Chinese school at home. But I actually found that was a lot more valuable than going to Chinese school. Like even I actually had this conversation with my mom. My mom actually now has said that like when I have kids, she would prefer that my kids don't end up going to like Sunday morning Chinese school because one, she thinks it's a lot more important to go to like church Sunday morning and engage in the gospel more. And my mom has actually like volunteered that like whenever like if my brother has kids first or if I have kids first, that she would be the one teaching Chinese because she found that was a lot more valuable. When I'd go to China, I have to speak Mandarin there. I don't have a choice. In Chinese school in the States, yes, I'm with other Chinese kids and we're encouraged to speak more Chinese there. But like as soon as class is over, we'll just revert back to English. So we're not really getting our values worth of like learning Mandarin. so when you're actually in China, not only in the classroom do you have to learn it, but if I wanted to go order something, I'd have to speak Mandarin. And if I didn't know how, I'd have to find a way.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do a lot of people in China speak English? Is that like a secondary language, or is it mainly just?
Well, yeah, a lot of people like now in China speak English, but like at the time I was a kid. So I was
Gotcha.
with other children and they didn't speak a lot of Chinese, speak a lot of English. So I had to like I don't think a 12-year-old version of me would be talking with adults, like 30-year-old adults
Yeah.
that have a good amount of English in their vocabulary, but because I was a 12-year-old in China during the summer for 3 months interacting with other like 10 to 13-year-olds and I was also speaking with my cousins and they didn't know a lot of English. I kind of had to like force myself to like learn how to like I had to find a way though, like either I have to speak completely broken Chinese, try a little bit of Chinglish, which is like a mixture of English and Chinese together, or I just have to like point at pictures and things like that. In fact, one thing that I've actually done once is I walked into a McDonald's one time and I tried to order like a Chinese a McDonald's in China, and I wanted to order like the Filet-O-Fish sandwich, and I didn't know how to order it. But you know how like menus they have like they're always like on like the top, and you have to like say like in McDonald's you would say like, oh, I want the number 1 meal or something like that. In China they weren't numbered, so you just had to say like what meal did I want, and I didn't know how to say Filet-O-Fish in Chinese, so I'd have to keep pointing at pictures, and they didn't know what. And this was also during the time I think I was in like I had just finished high school, and my aunt got me a part-time job there to teach English to other Chinese students that want to study here in the States. Because when you're a student in China and you want to study in the States, you have to pass like I don't remember what the exam is called, but like an English exam where you have to like be proficient in reading, writing, and speaking. So I taught classes there, and right across like the street there was a McDonald's, and I wanted to order something from there. So I just had to point at pictures, and the employees there knew I was a teacher at this school, and they didn't have like a paper menu where I could just point at something. So I had to keep pointing at like the wall.
Like
I just say like, no,
pointer.
not that one. No. One more to your right. Yes, that one right there. And I want the meal, and I want like this drink. And they looked at me very oddly because I could speak Mandarin and I don't have like a foreigner accent. So I can speak English and sound like an American, and I can speak Mandarin and sound like a Chinese native. They didn't know I was a Chinese native. So they ended up like going to the back. And they ended up like, I could hear them gossiping about me. It's like, it's like, like, what is wrong with this kid? Like, did he get like, did like mommy and daddy, like, did they just get him like a job with like daddy's company or something? Because they thought like, it was so bizarre to them that they were like, okay, he can speak Mandarin and sound like a Chinese native, but his vocabulary is so limited. He's speaking broken Mandarin, and they would like gossip, and they were thinking, it's like, do you think he's like one of those like rich snobby kids who like only got a job through mommy and daddy's company because these like wacky stories. And I thought it was so hilarious. I just didn't bother correcting them.
I was gonna say, was it weird? Kind of. Obviously, you were born and raised, and you said in New York.
Yeah, born and raised in New York, and then I moved to the States.
So going back to China, did your parents, were they born in China, or did your grandparents, or
they were born in China? And
so then they came over.
Yeah.
So is it kind of weird going over to China then, and then obviously being Chinese, like when you're trying to talk with them and they kind of like notice like, why can't he have like a full conversation, like order from the menu? Do you have a lot of those interactions where it's like,
as a kid, yes, I do. Nowadays I get a lot of wow, your Chinese really good for an American, because a lot of like Chinese Chinese Americans, they don't they don't continue practicing speaking Chinese. So now I get a lot of, wow, your Chinese is really good for a foreigner. But back then I get a lot of, like people would like look at me weird, or they'd have to like dumb down the language for me so I could understand it. And it's actually quite funny just seeing how those interactions have to go, because, outside of like the McDonald's incident, which I would, if I could meet those ladies again, I would love to actually talk with them and like tell them, it's like, yeah, so I heard that conversation you were having and thinking I was like some rich snobby kid that like never finished high school or something like that. But yeah, I do get a lot of those experiences. But I think what's interesting is, in the States, the way that people speak Chinese is a lot different. Like even if someone was proficient in Mandarin here in the States, we still do speak differently because sometimes the way we say words can sound different. Like if you were to say like, you wouldn't like if you were to call like if you were in a restaurant and you asked like your waitress to come over and give you a refill, you would do that differently over there than you would do it over here. So like it's a lot more loud, and it's almost like you treat them like if you're in China, it's almost like the waitress is your servant, like your personal butler. Here in the States, like we're a lot more like gentle with that. So I found that that's a little interesting.
And
okay,
is it still, there's no tipping isn't really a thing in Asia, correct? Or at least from my experience, it wasn't a thing.
Not to my knowledge, though.
Is there tipping in China?
I'm sure I'd have to ask my parents about that.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but I think for like smaller businesses, like yes, there is, but I feel like for like proper restaurants, no, because most people just kind of, it's just, I think it's just more of like I know for like smaller restaurants, you'd give tips, not because you're obligated to, but because like you'd get to know like the waiter and they'd say like, oh, I'm falling on hard times. And then they'd give a tip as like a generous tip to like help them through hard times.
But you're not really required.
Yeah. You're not required to. This isn't like when you go inside, like a restaurant now and they'd have like the iPad and you have to like say like the gratuity you want to give them. Like that's
tip
not
80%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember from when I was in Ireland and Thailand, there was no tipping. So I was just curious to know, like, because they paid their employees like an actual wage instead of relying on the tip from like the customers. But I wanted to change up the gears a little bit here. What's do you have? I know we went over Supernatural as your favorite TV show. Do you have any current favorite movie?
Current favorite movie
outside
of the obvious one, everything, everyone.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I have a Letterboxd account that like has like every movie that like I've ever watched. But lately, I'd say the one go-to I always love going back to is Titanic.
Really?
I freaking love Titanic. Like the historical event down to the actual movie, down to even some of the older movies. I freaking love Titanic. And
you might know some of the dialogue, right?
yeah. So this is like my favorite fun fact. Like whenever we do icebreakers, I tell people I have this weird skill that like a lot of times like I would have the extended cut of the movie and it'd be like almost 4 hours long. And I have a copy of the movie where I remove all the dialogue from the film, but I keep the music and the sound effects in.
And you say all the words.
And I say all the words. And it takes me about like 55 minutes to get from my house to my classes and about an hour and 20 minutes to get from my house to Crossway. And and sometimes what I do, I'll have the movie on and I just say the dialogue. Just, yeah. And I always tell people this. It's like, and when people ever ask me, what's my favorite comedy? I would say Titanic.
That's crazy. So you have like the entire movie memorized pretty much?
The entirety, including all like the deleted scenes and everything though. And I actually like
unreal.
Yeah, and as a kid, there's like home videos of me. I draw the Titanic sinking all the time. Like it was a very weird. I draw them on whiteboards, on like notebooks. Everything.
You are committed.
I've never met
someone
someone
part of
this
your
obsessed.
signature.
Yeah, what
it can be.
The movie so much.
Yeah, and I wish I had like I wish I had like a proper explanation of like how I became. I don't know. The other thing is like I also have like the fattest crush on like Kate Winslet. I still do though. Like it's a whole thing. I absolutely love her. She's actually someone on my bucket list that I want to interview one day. I follow her career.
You better tell her you can recite the entire movie.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. I will absolutely
can I do it for you right now?
What's that?
I can show you right now.
Yeah.
Here,
How much time do
you
you have?
tell her she plays Jack and you play Rose.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's a whole thing. And I can do that with a lot of movies. Titanic is just my favorite one to do it with. I can do it with like a good chunk of Marvel films as well. Some of the DC films. I can do it with Everything Everywhere All at Once, obviously, because I've seen it so many times.
You got some good memory.
Yeah, I think I don't know how I got this skill because I think I know how it is though. Like if you rewatch my Toy Story video on YouTube, the very beginning of the movie actually has footage of me as a baby, and you could actually see my brother. He has like toys, and he's reciting all of Toy Story, the first Toy Story,
So it's
and that's
in the
one
family.
that we do though. And I think I might have gotten that skill from him, which is funny. But my favorite thing though, is, as far as like with like films and whatnot, is occasionally my parents would want to like join in on us on like the films that we're watching. And I know I've mentioned this a little before we started recording, is that they also love watching like movies and TV shows with us, but they don't know the names of like movies properly. So like they would say things like, you know, if we're going to watch the Terminator movies, they're going to say, oh yeah, we're going to watch The Terminal instead of The Terminator. And then my brother and I, we like caught on to this, and we were just like, yes, we're also going to call it The Terminal. And then whenever we're picking up someone from the airport, like say if we're going to pick someone up at like Terminal 3, we're not going to say in the text message or on phone calls, hey, pick me up at Terminal 3. We're going to say, hey, like flight lands at like 11:15 p.m. Pick me up at Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. And we're like, got it.
Wow, that's awesome. There is a movie called The Terminal, though, right, with Tom Hanks,
I
think there is.
Maybe.
where he's like
Maybe.
stuck in the airport.
I'll look it up.
I don't
don't
know.
know.
I knew there was some movie like,
I know Terminal's a map.
yeah.
Oh,
Call
there
of
you
Duty.
go. No.
Oh,
Yeah.
some
It was
zombies
a whole
action.
thing. Or my favorite, because I know you guys are,
It
you know,
is.
you guys always like rip Pokemon packs like
Hey, no.
every now and then. My sister-in-law also, and like if you're watching, I know you're sick and tired of hearing about this, but like we also make fun of her whenever she can't like pronounce like, or she can't remember the names of Pokemon. Like, you know, like some people when they don't know Pokemon, they'll just think Pikachu is every
Yep.
Pokemon ever.
Who's
Yes.
that Pokemon?
It's Pikachu.
Pikachu.
Yeah. But
Pikachu.
my sister-in-law, she would look at the Johto starter Pokemon like Chikorita, Cyndaquil, and Totodile,
Uh-huh.
and she wouldn't know the names, so she'd give them like fake names. So she would call Totodile Wandering Around, and I don't know where that came from. She'd call Cyndaquil Nyo for some reason.
Yo-yo.
I don't know where that came
I'm
from.
officially calling Cyndaquil no.
Yeah,
That's all
and
I'm calling him
then
now.
she called Chikorita Pitai,
Huh.
and it's like,
P-tie.
Yeah,
And
we
it's-
know.
Is she
Pizza.
just like
We know
making up
pizza.
names for them?
I guess so. And then, or
It's kinda
also,
fun, though.
she'll call Charmander Hamilton. It's
Whatever
a whole
works.
thing. But she
Okay,
also gets movie titles wrong. We were just having a conversation recently in the car, and she didn't remember the name of Mrs. Doubtfire. So she was just like, "Oh crap, what's that movie with like Robin Williams?" And she was like, "Is it called Miss Delaware?" And then my brother was like, "Yeah, it's called Miss Delaware." And then she finally remembered. And now we just joke around, like my brother and I, like we do this with all of our foreign like family members who can't remember names properly. So every now and then, if my brother and I were talking about like Mrs. Doubtfire and we accidentally call it Mrs. Doubtfire, I would say like, "Oh no, like remember the actual correct name of the movie is Miss Delaware. It's not Mrs. Doubtfire." And that's how I refer to it now. So like we can't call Terminator 2 Judgment Day. We can't use that name anymore. We have to call it Terminal 2.
Terminal 2.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and there's many more to come as well, I'm sure. But they're sick and tired of it sometimes, and one of my favorites, another one of our family members, they I don't even know how you messed this up. They saw CVS pharmacy and they called it CUS. So now we also call it CUS.
CUS.
Go to
That's kinda look
CUS.
like you. Have you ever thought about writing your own script?
I have. Funny enough, that's actually what I went into my undergrad. I was a film major, but I was my concentration was in screenwriting and acting.
Okay.
So yeah, I
I
have.
think you'd be good at it.
Yeah.
You have all these scripts memorized and you study the stories themselves. Like you
Yeah.
understand the underlying meaning and messages
Mhm.
of the stories. I think you'd be good at writing
Yeah.
a script.
If I ever finish a script, you guys will be the first to know.
Awesome.
Let's
Beautiful.
go,
Absolutely.
dude.
Sick.
Sick.
Yeah, well, I think we're about 45 minutes, almost 45 minutes in.
Dang.
Unless anyone else has anything else. But
Yeah, I got lots of questions about China and the Chinese language, and we could probably talk for a long time.
Well, plenty of time to talk about that, though. It's
Yeah.
it's a lovely time.
yeah, well, Sam, thank you again for joining us for a 0.5. You made it.
Yes, sir.
A lot of good stuff. We learned a lot about China, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure to press the subscribe button. Give us a like. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us that 5-star review. We'd really appreciate it. And as always, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and share.
And don't forget too, though, you guys have never mentioned this though, but I feel like because it's a whole thing though. If you're on YouTube, not only like, comment, and subscribe, but ring the bell for notifications.
yeah.
So you don't miss out on a single
This
episode.
guy's a
That's
pro.
right. Ring the bell.
Ring that bell.
If you remember anything, ring the
Ding,
bell.
ding, ding.
And keep in mind, I'm always commenting on the videos too, though. So if you see Wayward Fanboy, I'm
Yeah,
always
be more
commenting
like
on the
Sam.
videos. Yeah.
And subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, and subscribe to his channel. Give it one more shout out for your channel.
Yep. Yeah. Again, it's Wayward Fanboy on YouTube, Wayward_Fanboy on Twitter and Instagram, and upcoming website when it launches, it'll be waywardfanboy.com.
You heard it. Well, check it out. Go follow him. Follow us. We'll catch you next time. This is the Campfire Council Podcast.